Hey guys, thanks for joining us again here at the Tasteless Podcast. This episode, I interview Wardi. He is a caster who does a ton of solo casting. I really appreciate his work. He was out here in Korea for about a week to play in the Gsl Qualifiers. And he fortunately had enough time to stop by my apartment, and we recorded this episode. It was really fun. We talked about a lot of different stuff, about what it's like to be a solo caster, the whole kind of business model of that. We also do talk about Reddit a little bit and the rules there. This was recorded. Melty, when was this recorded? Actually?
This was recorded on Thursday. the 18th.
Yeah, the 18th. No, I think that would have been the 21st. The 21st. Anyways, the point is that when you guys are listening to this, I will probably not be in Korea. So this is recorded a while back, but because I have an event I'm doing that I can't announce yet. But anyways, we talked about the Reddit mods, what's going on with that. I talked about some of my experiences with that, because Tasteless is a bad boy on Reddit right now. Did you see that, Melty?
Yeah, I did. I saw that we're getting a little bit of flack for posting our podcast.
We're some bad dudes, man.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even recycle guys. Like, that's how bad I am. So it was interesting though to talk about that, and you guys get to hear some of my perspective on that. We also, I think my favorite part of this episode was talking about his trip to Turkmenistan, where he casted there. And we'll unpack that more for you guys when the episode actually starts. Before we begin, if you can, please do support us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Tasteless Podcast. And I guess that's it. Without further ado, episode 7 of the Tasteless Podcast with Wardi. This is where I say I can't do this for real. I did that once in Control, actually. We were about to go live, and I just looked at my gun. I can't do this. I acted like I was going to freak out and run off the stage. All right. Wardi, welcome to my house.
It's nice here.
Is it nice?
Yeah, it's cool, right?
Yeah. What was it? What you expected?
Yeah, I guess.
The photos of all my ex-girlfriends with the eyes cut out, and
You know, I thought you were into some weird stuff.
Yeah.
But, well,
yeah, baby doll heads on sticks, and no, it's great to have you down here. Now, you were just at the GSL
Yes.
qualifiers.
I was.
And did you qualify for the GSL?
Shockingly, no. I know, right? Everyone thought I was a big favorite going in, but sometimes you just gotta let the Koreans win as well, right?
So, what was it like when you got down there? I mean, were you excited? Were you nervous? Was it weird?
It was pretty cool, right? Because I feel like it's been a long time since I've seen so many of the top Koreans together, because they don't really play in that many offline events anymore, right? So I thought it was really cool to see everyone together, where I'm very used to seeing all the non-Korean players like that, but yeah, I don't think I've ever seen the Korean players together like that, like in that sort of number. So it's pretty cool to see a lot of people, and I wasn't really nervous because I didn't really think I actually had much chance. So yeah, it was just fun to see people and hang out, and yeah, it was just fun.
And did you win any games?
No, I got a walkover, which I'm going to take as a big win for myself.
One win, okay.
Yeah. didn't do much for it, but yeah.
And so, what was the game like that you played? I mean, did you feel like did you get owned?
It's actually insane. Like, these guys are so good.
Yeah.
Like, I've played against like better players before and stuff like that when I play like tournaments in the UK, or just if I decide to play something for fun. And like, you know, when you're outmatched, but these guys are insane. Like, there's just like little things that you just don't even think about, and they're like scouting constantly, and it's just like you just feel so much more under pressure than you've ever felt before. I've never felt like that playing a game of StarCraft. I felt like I actually had no chance at all.
Yeah, it's a crazy feeling when you're playing against somebody, and they're so good, whether it's StarCraft or another game, that it's like you don't even get to do anything.
Yeah.
Like if you're in a fighting game and someone just starts to combo you, and you're like, "Why? That's just it. I'm watching my avatar
Can't do anything.
Get the shit kicked out of it." I actually, a long time ago, you had to get a pro gaming license for StarCraft 1.
Yeah.
And it was a tournament called Courage, and Danemy played in it. And it was just weird playing in it, man.
Yeah.
Like, obviously the fact that you're like the only white guy at the tournament, and you know, people like, who's this? You know, and then to make it worse, there was a documentary crew. This is for a documentary that never came out, by the way. But they filmed Danemy playing in Courage. And like, I think even though I do broadcasting, there was something weird about having a camera in my face when I'm playing.
Yeah.
That gave me so much more anxiety. And I just like lost my shuttle with my Reaver and the camera's like right there in my face, and my face was so red. And then they filmed me walking out, and I looked at Dan, and I'm like, I lost. And like Dan's like, oh man. And then like the camera's continuing to follow me, and I'm like, oh, I don't want this documentary to ever come out. I got lucky, and it never did, but it was really, really awkward. So this is your first time in Seoul, right?
Yeah, my first time in Korea.
So what is Seoul like for you?
It's pretty interesting so far. I've been here like about a week now. We've done a lot of sightseeing, some partying. It's fun. I really like the city. I quite like cities, and I think Seoul's a really good one. Like, it's really easy to get everywhere. There's a lot of walking, just because even like the subway stops are like really big sometimes. Like sometimes it takes me like 5 minutes once I get in the subway to get to the subway, right?
Oh yeah, that's a good
It
point.
can be pretty crazy at some places. So it's pretty big, but it's kind of what I expected. But yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you make about walking. The whole city is actually built so you can walk anywhere.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you could walk literally from. I live on the opposite side of the studio. I live on the west side of Seoul. The studio is on the east side of Seoul. You could literally just walk there by foot, and it would not be. There'd be paths made for you, basically.
Yeah.
And you're from Newcastle originally, correct? Yeah. Is that one of those cities where like you have to own a car, or
there's like decent public transport. You can walk around. It's not like super big, right? So you can kind of get where you need to be pretty easy, I think. I lived like a bit out the city, so having a car was nice just to get around places. It definitely helped once I could drive. So
yeah, a lot of people might not know this. I don't own a car. I haven't driven a car in 15 years, and I don't think I will ever own a car.
I just feel like you wouldn't need one in Seoul. Right?
No, you don't. It's actually one of my buddies. We're gonna go hang out with him after this broadcast is done. But he bought a car, and was driving around, and it was like a status symbol thing, and it was cool that to get in this car and kind of cruise around the city. But yeah, I mean, trying to find parking,
I couldn't imagine it.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. It's not worth it. But yeah, I don't have a driver's license. I haven't driven a car. Same with Artosis. I didn't have a car in college, so I've somehow managed to get this far in life for pretty much not driving, except for maybe high school or something like that. But yeah, I was just curious about that because I wonder if the public transit in your place would require you.
Mine, it's kind of okay in like my place, just because I think the hardest part was like getting to the public transit in the first place. So, like for example, when I went to school, it was really nice when I could drive like down to the subway, because that was like a 30-minute walk. So that's probably like the biggest difference. But then it's like, again, it's so small, so it's pretty connected quite easily.
I know this is not normally stuff I ask about in the podcast, but since you're here, I want to just bring it up. What is your take on Brexit right now?
I think it's such a mess.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not like a big politics sort of person, so I'm not like, I don't follow those sort of things, but obviously it's something that you can't help but follow now as like a UK sort of person. So I don't know. It feels like such a mess. No one in the UK knows what's going on. It feels like even a lot of the people who wanted to leave the EU now don't. So it's a real mess. I don't know.
It's a fascinating thing. I've got a cousin who works in London, and she was texting me right before it was happening. She thought, "Oh, this is going to happen. This is going to be bad." I thought, "No way are they actually going to try to leave the EU?" But
it's crazy because you just don't know what's going to happen, right? Like, there's no way to predict what's going to happen, because even the politicians don't know what's next. So, like, when we were kind of approaching our deadline to leave, every day was just like, oh, we failed to pass another thing. And no one knows what that means because no one's ever done this before. Like, So, I mean, personally, for me, I think it's way better if we stay in the EU, because I like being able to travel to the EU easily. And, you know, in my line of work, it's very likely that I might have to work in the EU, right? So, just in general, if we're in the EU, that makes life a lot easier. And, you know, in the future, it might be a possibility I have to move in the EU. So, for me, it's like a real... it's easier to be part of the EU, but I also just think it's better because I have so many friends who are from Europe and stuff like that who have come to the UK to live and work, and it just feels like it makes everything so much more complicated, and it feels like we're trying to forge our own path with no actual idea of what the future is with that. Right?
Yeah, so. It seems like the world's in a really weird place because, like, someone like you or me, we are completely taking advantage of what globalism is.
Yeah.
Like the fact that I can do a StarCraft show in South Korea in English, and
crazy.
Yeah, and it literally goes to everybody else in the world. I mean, there's obviously the South Korean broadcasters doing their thing, and the Koreans watch that. But then for everybody else in the world, they can watch this thing. And so I look at globalism, and I'm just like, this is amazing. I mean, I'm a guy from Kansas who is living in Seoul now, doing a video game show.
Yeah,
essentially. But yeah, I guess it's on the other side of that to see how some people are reacting in industries that are not. I don't even mean this in a bad way, but not as innovative or not as new or requires different stuff. But I was really curious to get your take.
Yeah,
on that.
Like I said, I think it's a real mess, but it's just so hard to know. Like, for example, my parents are like for Brexit.
Oh, really?
But I feel like they're for Brexit for like all the wrong reasons, right? Like they listen to like all the propaganda of, oh, this would be great, and they just, I don't know, like they just like sort of like take advantage of the opportunity. And I think what's so crazy though is for them, a lot of like what comes into play will never really affect them as much as it affects me, right? So for them, like I feel like after talking to them more, it's one of those things where they start to realize, oh, maybe like it's actually not such a bad thing for you, and that's like changed their minds a lot. So it's really crazy because it is just such a divide. And
also, the UK has had a really interesting history globally because, I mean, there's a period where they controlled almost the entire world. You know, colonies in India. You know, going to the Opium Wars with China. Obviously, the United States had to fight the UK for independence, but it seems like there's been now like a long history after the UK had dominion over almost the entire world. They seem to want to get further and further and further retracted.
Yeah, it's like we just want to be an island.
That
floats off the west.
You want to go back to being an island. It's a very fascinating history with the country because it is.
It's not what we used to be, right?
It's the ambitions to continue to implode in a way. And I'm not saying it's bad or good. It's just a unique situation for a country.
It is just weird.
Yeah.
I like. There's no good way to describe it other than it's just really weird.
So, speaking of traveling, you know, for work, obviously it's going to get more complicated for you. I guess not that much more complicated, but it's a little bit more of a headache. You started as a caster who was, and I've kind of been fascinated by this. You're like a one-man show.
Yeah.
And it's totally different than what I do. I think a lot of times people see Dan and me, and there's not an appreciation for how many people it takes to put on like a GSL.
Yeah.
You know, the dozens of people it takes to run around and get that thing going. But you cast and manage and produce all on your own.
Yeah. It's kind of like maybe a very selfish way of thinking, but I always thought from the start a lot of the things where I was like, oh, if I had someone to help me out, I always felt like they never pulled their weight. And not in an awful way, just in like I was all for this, right? But whenever I had someone else, they were just doing that for like a bit of fun. So it's been very difficult for me to ever find someone who's also like all in on what I'm doing. So I kind of adapted to working on my own because I did everything to my standards. And I did everything the way I wanted it to be. And not necessarily that was maybe the best way to work, but I felt it was an easy way for me to work. And I adapted a lot of things to be able to work like that.
Do you feel like that's you in general, or is this just with your job? Do you feel like you're ever like a control freak? Or
no, I wouldn't say I'm like a control freak, but then I feel like for something I'm so passionate about, I want to make sure it gets done right. And so that's why I kind of have trouble handing things off to other people in the past. But that was, again, like, I'd say a lot of that is more like a long time ago, like when I first got started. And nowadays it's just the case of I don't necessarily need that as much. / in the position I'm at now, it's at the stage where you should kind of pay people for doing that sort of thing. But I'm also not in the position to pay people. So it's that kind of weird combination of I've kind of grown up in this industry learning to do things on my own. And I'm also not quite well placed enough to be able to pay people if I wanted to. So I kind of just carry on the way it's been.
So is to start that out, what was the order of what you felt like you had to learn with that?
So, I mean, it all came very naturally in the sense that I started out like adminning some tournaments. So I was helping to run some events for another organization when I was at university. And this was before I was like casting. I was just running like a community group. And then I started casting some tournaments as well. And there was like other people who there was other people who like in that organization would admin while I casted, right? But then like, you put those two things together. So I know how to run a tournament. I knew how to cast a tournament, and you sort of just get it to that point where it runs very seamlessly, so that I could nowadays, like if I run a online cup, for example, I don't even think about needing an admin, because I know for a fact like the biggest headache is going to be at the very start, and like 20 minutes in when you have that first wave of, oh heck, half the people didn't show up and everyone wants a walkover.
Yeah.
So now that I know that, I just take like the first half hour of my broadcast very casually. We just kind of have a chill time. We talk to chat a lot. You're still in a game, but you don't, go super seriously on it, right? And so it gives me that sort of period where, oh guys, I just need a moment to like sort this out. And nowadays I have like a laptop set up to the side so I can talk to people without like not showing the game that's going on, for example. So it's kind of like, in terms of what you learn first, it kind of just depends. It's kind of weird, right? Because it just sort of came naturally over time, because I never set out to be a caster, which is kind of very interesting as well. I think like I never said, oh, I want to be a StarCraft caster. I just sort of did this thing because I really enjoyed doing it. I kept doing it, and then I got to that point where it's like, well, I actually kind of could maybe do this full time, right? So that's what I started to do. So
if you weren't, that's really interesting, by the way. I actually did not know that. I was not expecting you to say that. So what did you feel like your actual goal was?
I just had a community, and I just wanted to do stuff for the community. And then, one tournament that started out for like Bronze to Diamond League players became Master League players could play. And then it was like, instead of being a one-night cup, we did like a 3-month cup, for example, or a 3-month league. And it just kind of really enjoyed this method of tournament organizing. And, one day I got into a fight with some people. I had a team, so I had a community, and we made like a team. And one day my team got in a fight with the team, like this big team league that was in Europe. Basically the admins screwed us over. So we got in a bit of a fight, and I was like, God, you guys are idiots. I could do this way better. And that's when I made the SCT Improved Team League, which is like one of the big tournaments that really kind of brought me into StarCraft a little bit more. And it was kind of very interesting because, then I learned how to run a team league and go from there. And it was one of those things where it just came out of nowhere, right? And so I didn't make a team league because I was like, you know what? I really think I want to run a team league. It was just something that made sense at the time. And that's kind of feels like everything I've done in StarCraft 2 just sort of made sense at the time to do something bigger or to go full time and so on.
That's really interesting. I actually did not exactly get into casting because I wanted to be a caster either.
Yeah.
I wanted to meet other pro gamers because I was a StarCraft 1 pro at the time, and I wanted to play all these Europeans or Koreans or various other people in Asia. And I just wanted to go to an event and meet some of them and talk about the game in person. And then as I was at I was in Singapore for my first like actual paid event. I mean, it was hardly any money, but there was something there. And I remember just looking around thinking, oh, wait a minute. All these people working at this convention hall, I mean, these are all being paid.
Yeah.
And maybe I can kind of get into this. And then, I mean, from there, after time, of course, obviously when I came to Korea, I wanted to get a show going. But, yeah, it's funny the path that you can take and kind of where that leads you.
Yeah. I mean, like, nowadays that, it became that crossing point at one point where I became full-time. And obviously at that stage, my goal was to be a caster, right? Because I was full-time and it was working out. And so from there, my goal is to grow and to be able to keep doing this a little bit more. But that was never there in the first place. I feel like it's really crazy because I feel like getting into streaming is a really difficult thing to do nowadays. Yeah. And if I think back, I streamed for literally years while I was at university to like 10 viewers, like hours a day. And if I think about doing that now, I would be like, ugh, please no.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? That sounds like awful. Like, I don't know how anyone has the passion to do that. But I just enjoyed it so much then. I had the time then. And obviously it's just so different. And it kind of like just means that I got past that stage. And I think that's what a lot of people have to do if you want to get into stream. Because a lot of people ask, like, how do you get into casting or how do you get into esports? I think you just have to take the opportunities you can and like roll with it. And never set yourself that goal of, I'm going to do this. Because then you can get very disappointed. Because if I was trying to become a caster and after a year and a half I was still casting to 10 people every day, like that is not fun, right?
Yeah.
That's there's no progress there. So it's kind of one of them things you just have to really enjoy first and go from there. And I think that's the approach I really took. Do you struggle with fatigue in days where you're casting all day? Because I've tuned in to you and then I'll go
I mean, I leave it on one of these monitors that's over here, and then I'll come back. Maybe I go to the grocery store. I have to run some errands, and then you're still there.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're doing a type of. I mean, essentially, you're an entertainer, right? I mean, that's what a caster is an entertainer. You're analyzing, but you're trying to make it enjoyable. But I mean, you have to be on by yourself, by the way, which I can appreciate because I've done solo casting. It's really hard to do. You have to be on for an insanely long period of time. Is that difficult?
It can be. It depends what mood you're in, and I think it depends how the stream's going. Like, I think one of the best examples is, say I'm casting like a WCS as a community stream, right? It's like a 10, 12-hour broadcast, but you're not the main stream, you're like the B stream. And it's so demotivating because you're like, say you've got like 400 or 500 viewers, but you've got like one person in chat because everyone's watching the main stream, and then the rest of your viewers are just people who are there with you on the second screen. I feel like that can be super demotivating because you're like, well, how many people are really listening to me right now? And then it can be very easy to fall into that mindset of, well, does it matter if I'm not super hyped up or super excited, and maybe I should just take it easy. Whereas I think if like the stream is like buzzing and like everyone's like dropping subs, obviously like if people drop money, you love it, right? But that sort of thing helps a lot. Like even if like, say I have like a slow hour or so on the stream, but then like a couple of subs come in, which isn't like a ton of money, it's like, a few bucks, that can like completely change my perspective of how a day goes.
Yeah.
And it's like so crazy how that can, and I've tried it so much to like zone that out in my mind because I know it's a really bad way to approach it because you can't control that. But then some days you do just wake up and you've got a cast and you're not in the mood for it, right? Like it's really difficult to bring that energy, or like you didn't get a good night's sleep, or I was casting until 11 p.m. Now I have to cast at 9 a.m. I've literally done nothing between casts apart from trying to get sleep. So it can be very tiring. So I just kind of take every day as it comes, and sort of, if I have a long one, I just sort of try and grind it out. And I think as well, I got very good at conserving myself when I know I've got a long stream. So a lot of people will complain sometimes and say, man, you're so boring. You don't have any difference in your voice, or you're not getting excited. And I'm like, I'm casting like the first rounds of an online cup. I'm going to be casting on my own for like 4 or 5 hours straight. Like, I can't get excited about every time a worker dies, because then my voice is going to give out, never mind anything else, but it also takes so much more energy than just sort of getting by until the really important parts later on.
Also, I think people don't appreciate what shouting does to your body.
Yeah.
I don't think, sometimes when I do like a major, a big tournament like in the finals, and like I have to scream the players' names, I will actually be shaking.
Yeah.
And it's not like a, if I scream TY into the mic or something, I'm not nervous in that moment.
Yeah.
But the adrenaline, and if you go outside and just scream at the top of your lungs, like, what that'll do to you. And absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's a whole technique to trying to conserve energy that I think people just don't appreciate because they haven't realized how much time it takes to do an esports broadcast for almost any game.
You have to really think about it like so much more than people are aware of, like you say. I think one of the best examples is say I cast like a really good series, it's really ridiculous and close, and I get myself really hyped up. Some days, if that's like the first series of the day or something, because, it's just a sick group and even the first match is really good, I can feel like really drained for the second series already. And I'm like, man, this is why, I got to chill out sometimes, because if you go all out in the first series, it can really just bring everything else down from there. And it can be, you can't just make energy up out of nowhere, right? And, you're in the middle of a broadcast, so you can't just run out and like, grab 5 minutes, or you can't just run and like grab something to like pump you up again, right? Like some food or something, or like a chocolate bar, I don't know, like whatever does it for you. But it's really weird because you want to be excited because that's what everyone expects. And it's so frustrating when people are like, man, you're so boring, talk about it. I'm like, I just yelled for half an hour.
Right, yeah. And also, it kind of depends on what's going on in the game. I felt like there was a period early on in StarCraft casting where everybody was trying to overhype.
Yeah.
And it was almost, I'm talking like, 7 years ago, okay? So I don't think this is an issue now, but it was like everybody was almost trying to polish this turd a little bit too much. Sometimes you have a game where it's a very straightforward, right? It's a textbook game. Like, we have that in GSL. Say, okay, this is a very straightforward loss.
Yeah.
I don't say, cross-eyed into the camera, that was the greatest game I've ever seen. Because it wasn't. And it's like dishonest to the viewer. And I think there was a period where there was some kind of weird demand for overhype,
Yeah.
and I think it's gone away a little bit.
The thing is as well, sometimes it's like you watch PvZ, for example, and you get like the third Stargate opening in a row, and someone in the chat is going to be like, man, why aren't you talking about the game? It's like, because we literally just discussed this like 5 times in a row already. Nothing's changing, it's the same, and you can't come up with the same things again and again, because as a caster, like if I've casted the same matchup like 2 or 3 times that day, you're already like very worn out of saying the same things, so it's more fun just to like, especially in my position, and that's kind of the position between like being a caster on a Twitch stream versus like casting on like GSL or something, right? Like I could cast like so many games in a day, so it becomes really important for me to not say the same things again and again for my own sanity and to enjoy it. And again, because I have that out as well of being able to like talk to chat a little bit, but then it's also hard to find that balance, right? Because
well, also there's the weird reversal of that, right? Where let's say that you did say the same thing every time, then you're gonna get the
hate from
you're saying the same fucking thing every time, Wardi.
Yeah, I've been tuning in for 3 hours and you're just saying the same thing.
Stop
like,
repeating yourself.
Yeah. Can't win, man.
Yeah, it's tricky. Well, also I guess now with the internet the way it is, you can get feedback that is so much more than you might actually need.
Yeah.
It's almost like if I knew what everybody that was on the street thought about me. You know what I mean? I don't need that. I mean, I shouldn't care to begin with, right? But at the same time, like if I thought, this person thinks you're ugly, this person, is suspicious of you, this person thinks you look nice. It's too much.
Yeah. It's really amplified with Twitch chat as well, right? Because I have to read chat because I'm a streamer.
Yeah.
Like it's not like I'm sat at WCS and I don't have chat open.
That's a good point.
My job is to like read chat. My job is to see people who subscribe and support the stream, and to be interactive with them, because that's what makes my stream a bit different to someone who's just going all out, like talking about the game or whatever, right? And it helps you through those like slow moments. But then you've got people who'll be like, "Why are you talking to chat?" And like the one time you miss something because you're looking at chat, for example, and everyone's like, "Oh, come on." So it's kind of like the tough parts of what I do, I guess.
Yeah, it's. That's a very good point with the chat, too, because I don't ever see Twitch chat.
Yeah.
I'm never there. I've had people ask me this, are you reading Twitch? There's no way.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't for the kind of the work that I'm doing. Actually, what's interesting, by the way, did you know that the Koreans casters read Africa TV chat?
Really?
I know they do it for ASL. I believe they do it for GSL as well.
Yeah.
But they'll interact with the chat.
That's interesting.
On that.
But that's just not a thing in like English broadcasting or like major events, right?
Yeah, it's and I don't know how exactly they do it. And just real quick for the people listening, because I think some people might not be aware that Africa TV is also a streaming service.
Yeah.
It's not just it's more than the production company that owns GSL, but they're a streaming service too, and they're basically only big in Korea. But I don't know, culturally, I think the chats behave a little bit more differently, and people are more ready to kind of have fun with that. But they also have a lot more moderation in that to keep it manageable.
Yeah.
But that is a different style. And I don't know. For Dan, we thought because they offered it to us. We said no, we don't want to have the chat open. Well, besides just horrible racist stuff and just be accosted over the internet in front of all these people. But I think even if you had it modded, I think the style that we've got now,
it just works, right?
I think it works, right? And I don't want to kind of throttle the show too much because now we've got an audience. People kind of expect a certain thing. Now, you went from casting. I mean, obviously, you still do this kind of marathon solo. You're doing everything cast from home, but you've had the opportunity now to travel to major international events. What was the first event you went to globally, and then what was that like?
So my first global event was WSG America Finals in Brazil, and it was a bit of a shock because they kind of told me to do it on Sunday, and I flew on Wednesday. So I went from like...
Oh, that happens a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of stuff in esports. It's very last second.
Right? But that was my first like feel of like working in esports as well.
Yeah.
It was a very relaxed like introduction to it because it was like a major event where they flew me out. It wasn't like a super... I would say it wasn't like a super professional broadcast. WSG gets criticized quite a bit for its broadcasts, and that was definitely one of those days where it was literally like you sit at the desk, your producer tells you to start talking, you talk, and then you stop. And they don't have like any cool videos or anything. Like it was just like cut to break screen. So it was like a very relaxed intro to it, and it was with Rotterdam and Penguin. And those are guys who I've like known before and who I've talked to before. So it was like, it was a nice way to get into it. And I don't know, like I feel like that was a very nice way to transition through because I was very excited, but then I also didn't feel like super nervous about it because it's not like I just like, it wasn't like it was like, here, you're doing WCS. This is like make or break. So
also, I guess that was that going out to the audience. Your voice was it?
So
like,
no, because it was in Brazil, so they had like Brazilian casters.
Oh, so there's Portuguese casters
yeah.
there. Okay, because this is something that I think people don't tend to think about if they don't cast. But there's like 3 types of broadcast. There's a kind that you do from home, or in any kind of studio, but there's no live audience that can hear you. And then there's the kind that you have where it's like, okay, your voice is going out, you're at a live event, there is an audience, but they can't hear you.
Yeah.
And then there's a third one where you actually talk and then you hear your voice boom over.
Yeah, and people like
auditorium.
cheer or something.
Yeah, and you would scream and then people can react and it's a very different experience.
I had such a weird thing with that when I did my first WCS event in Leipzig because we had some time to kill or something, and I wouldn't ever say I'm the person to like get the crowd super hyped up, right? But we're just killing some time, and for some reason in my head I was like, you know what would be great if I was just like, how's it going, Leipzig? And so I did it, and people actually cheered back, and I was like a bit stunned because I wasn't like actually expecting people to cheer back, right?
Yeah.
Like, because if I'm like that, I'm like, how's it going, chat, in my Twitch chat, right? I just see some people spamming like emotes. Like, but then these guys actually cheered back. I was like, oh, Zombie Grub, like, you talk now because I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's a very odd experience, especially because
there's no way to practice it, right? Like,
I can't remember which podcast we talked about this, but I have had this theory that it's almost like stand-up comedy, where you just need to go out there and bomb a bunch. Like, there's no way to get better. But people have asked me, do I like practice casting at home? No, that would not do anything for me. Like, I need to be in front of an audience. And I'm very fortunate because I got GSL, so I basically get constant practice to do that. But yeah, it's not like I know they're teaching esports. There's esports programs in schools now. Did you know about this? What are they teaching them?
I have no
the
idea.
The fuck would you learn? I don't know. What's weird is I don't know anybody who's teaching there, and I feel like I know all the
esports people.
I know all the esports people, and I'm by the way, I'm not condemning esports programs in school, but I don't know.
I really hope it's just like you do like a marketing class with like an esports angle on it, right? Like, that's what I hope it is, because otherwise I'm like, what do you actually like? Do you learn to be a pro player? Like,
I think it's like to get a job in the industry, but what's weird about it is this is so new, and it's actually not a very figured out thing, especially the money making side of it. That I just wonder what they would be teaching them. But yeah, I mean, to become a caster, I guess in theory you could have a school. I believe Riot Games actually had, if I understand this correctly, I believe they had the person who. One of the people that was in charge of broadcasting for the Olympics, or the person that would talk to Melty, could fact check this for me. I don't want to just make shit up. But I believe Riot Games hired somebody who coached the commentators for kind of, the obscure sports in the Olympics, which there are a lot of. Kind of, here's what you want to say, here's kind of how you do it. I believe they hired that person to teach those commentators, I think.
At least that sort of sounds like it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Because then
we're talking about like curling, like nobody knows curl. You have to be able to kind of articulate what's going on, and
no, it's really interesting. I can get behind something like that, but then I feel like all these people who are doing like, who pick up an esports. Can you imagine like all these kids who are like, oh, I gotta do a degree at university. Oh, I can do an esports degree, and they're just like, yeah, I'm gonna learn how to game. But then I feel like it can't be anything like that. Like,
did you know that there's they're called esports hagwons out here. A hagwon is like I guess in English word would be like it's like a after school program.
Yeah.
Or like a place where you can kind of go study the specific thing. But there's gaming schools out here now for kids that want to get really good at certain things. And I believe that's becoming a thing in the States as well. Which here's the thing is like they teach chess. In school, I guess in theory you could teach.
It's just so hard for esports because you don't teach esports, right? You teach a game, or like maybe like a genre at most. It's tough.
Well, I don't. It's weird. I feel like. So I played StarCraft competitively but I picked up several games in my life, and I feel like almost like, when you learn languages, the second language is the hardest.
Yeah.
The third language and the fourth language become incredibly easier because you kind of have the building blocks for that. So like I did no background in card games. I got Legend in Hearthstone. And then I went to Street Fighter, and I got, I would say, good at that. I mean, not like Evo level or anything like that, but I can play. Like, I know how to play. And I felt like each time I tried to pick up a new game, it got easier. Now I'm actually, me and Melty, our producer, we're learning chess together. Since my wrists are still kind of fucked up, I can't play anything mechanical right now. And I feel like even that, I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm catching on to it more. So I guess in theory, if you had somebody who had enough experience in games with kind of game theory.
I guess so. It just seems like such a wide spectrum of everything, right?
Yeah.
I just don't know where to pinpoint something that says, oh, you'd be good at teaching people how to play games.
Well, I guess in theory it would be someone who's an ex-pro.
Yeah, and they know the process. Almost.
So like Valdez, we just did a recording with him, I think 2 or 3 days ago, but he's like really good at a bunch of different games. Like kind of any game, even if it's a new game, if you get online and play with him, like he's good. Like he clearly just knows. When Moonglade was out here, it was a similar situation where any game you queued up with him, he kind of knew it. So I guess, but the thing is, it's so new that I feel like it
almost just feels like a money grab in a way, right?
You think so?
I don't want to say that it is. I just feel like because of my previous experience, like with things in esports, that people try and like make something out of it that's not there yet.
Oh, that's okay.
You know what I mean?
That's totally that
right?
is totally a thing.
So,
well, there's definitely a lot of weird money stuff going on in esports that is very, very strange. But I guess in theory you could have a school, but I don't think that's what these. I think there's a difference between these esports teams or esports tutoring, like pro gaming tutoring, and then I guess what they're teaching at universities. I really, at some point in time, need to get somebody in one of these programs on the show.
Yeah,
and kind of really just ask them, okay, what's going on there?
I feel like it must be like, say, like you do like a marketing course, right? But it's like based around esports, so like instead of like learning the marketing of like England or something, I don't know what you learn in marketing, but like you do like esports based stuff.
UCI, Division of Continuing Education, Esports Specialization. No, Melty has just pulled this up on screen. It says, what you will learn. Examine relationships in the esports communities. Understand how their different roles affect each other. Explore esports from behind the scenes and learn what it means to be involved in esports. Learn the structures of what an esports organizations might look like, and build the groundwork for an understanding of the esports industry. Understand the roles and influences that game developers have in the industry. So that basically doesn't tell me anything at all.
That's like, hey, we're going to tell you what esports is in like the first hour, and then I don't know what.
Scroll down. I don't want to read this guy's name, but this is the answer. I don't want to read his name on air because I'm not trying to trash on the guy. But okay, so it's a program in Irvine. I've never heard of the guy, but I don't know. I mean, that doesn't mean that he's not somebody who's done something. But okay, so that's kind of what's going on with
weird.
Weird. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the thing is I don't think esports is going to go away. So eventually,
I think it would make sense eventually, right? Like, I guess in a way you have to play hit and miss at the start, right? And people have to try these kind of things before you can just be like, oh, this doesn't work, or maybe we'll edit this and maybe it does work, and I don't know. But it feels like, I guess because esports is so new, you don't have those people who are like leaving esports to become teachers already, right? Whereas like a lot of like, that's how kind of it works at like at universities and stuff. Like you have people who have like done research and studied a lot of things, and then they become professors. And obviously maybe they're still doing research or something, or however that works. But like, I just don't think we're at that stage of esports yet. So it is meant to feel a bit weird, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess also, from where we came in gaming, this was such a non-existent thing that was kind of made out of nothing, that the idea of it being institutionalized at all is so crazy to me. But it's interesting. I don't know. Hey guys, we're going to stop for a quick break here. And I want to thank two of our top Patreon supporters, Charlie Sheaver and John Kernicki. Thank you guys so much for continuing to help us fund this podcast. It's really appreciated. How How you doing, Melty?
I'm good.
Now that you see, because we had to re-record this, now you're actually mic'd up. One day, if we get enough money, guys, I will buy a third microphone.
Yeah.
Um,
We just have to pay off the first two.
We got to pay off the first two. How much did those first two mics cost?
All in all, we spent about $3,000 on equipment.
I spent what? No, I knew that. Yeah, really expensive mics, but I tell you, man, it does make a difference having good sound quality. And then, is my apartment a little bit cooler in here?
Yeah,
since
it is.
the G-Clef.
Oh yeah, no, it
interview.
is so much better. Since
G-Clef almost died of a heat stroke.
Yeah.
Turns out my air conditioner in this building is 13 years old.
Yeah, and a 13-year-old AC will definitely.
Yeah, it craps out on you, man. People were using PlayStation 2s back then. It's like a million years ago. So yeah, I think I'm gonna get the unit replaced here. The Korean summers are brutal, man. It gets hot out here. Now we don't have any sponsors yet, but if we did have one, we would be talking about it right now. Instead, we're talking about how I'm going to get a new air conditioner. Anyways, guys, if you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Tasteless Podcast. And now back to the episode with Wardi. So, sorry, I'm looking at my notes here. We got to get on this tangent on the esports schools. I want to talk to you about the current situation with the StarCraft Reddit. Since this is, I'm trying to be topical. Now, I don't know if it's going to change when we actually put this out because this recording is actually going to be like in the pipes, basically, because I got a family trip coming up here, and then I got an event I don't believe I've been announced for yet that I'll be going to. And so I won't be here in Korea, so I don't know if the StarCraft Reddit's going to change, but what is the date today, Melty?
Today is the 20th, and this comes out.
The 20th of June. Oh my God, the year 1990. No, the 20th of June. Okay, so yeah, but there's been a lot of I guess there was a change in moderation on the StarCraft Reddit.
So they added new mods, right?
Yes.
And then I don't know which of the mods. I don't know if it's the new mods that have been doing this, but I mean, it doesn't matter about whether they've got new mods or not, because this has been a thing for a long time, where an overall Reddit rule is about self-promotion, and
right?
How it's not allowed per se, or you're meant to stick to like a rule of like you make one post about yourself and you've got to make 9 other posts otherwise, which I think has been laxed a little bit now. But it's such a weird sort of thing because for the StarCraft Reddit, we're such a small community, and we are like a community, right? And
right.
So it feels like we sort of take these rules, or the mods take these rules, and they just sort of like hammer them down. And so it's just like to the point where it hurts the community more than it helps the community, right?
Yeah, it seems like it's an attempt to try to regulate astroturfing. And astroturfing is a thing that actually was a real problem on Reddit. Astroturfing is basically where, let's say that we had a company with 50 people, okay? And our company is going to promote, we're going to talk about our tournament. We're going to make a post on Reddit, and we're going to have every person in the company comment in the comment section. Yeah. And upvote it, and essentially create the illusion that there is hype around this. And it's, in a weird way, it's like fake news. Yeah. Basically. And there's been a lot of problems with manipulation on Reddit. A company that I won't name, but I knew was this is years and years ago was trying to manipulate Reddit in ways. And there was even what's his name, Chan Man. He does. Yeah, he was caught. This is a long time ago, but basically having several Reddit accounts that would upvote and I guess downvote other content. I'm not exactly sure. And so essentially, you're manipulating the environment, and what people's perceptions is. I mean, it's kind of a weird way to. It's like fake news. I mean, like we saw with what happened with the United States elections and what Russia was doing. I'm sure what the U.S. has done to other countries overseas, but at the same time, I feel like with some of the moderation on Reddit, some of this stuff doesn't make any fucking sense.
Right. Like, it feels like they should take it on a case-by-case basis, but instead they're just like, oh, we've got rules, and we're going to hammer down the rules.
Yeah, like, I don't... So, like take this... I'll just use this podcast as an example. Like, we have an account, Tasteless Podcast, we're posting on there. Yeah. We were warned that you need to... This is self-promotion. Yeah, it's obviously fucking self-promotion. It's the taste. We're trying to be completely transparent. just one account. There's not, I don't have my 10 Reddit accounts I'm on there, and I've got passwords written down on notepads. We put it out there, and then in some cases, it's people. Well, let me just stay on this specific case. They were saying, well, you need to interact in other ways on the forum. Yeah. But I mean, it would be a fake interaction if we're like, okay, like we're going to pretend that someone that works here is going to write on the forum.
It's not how it works, right?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, isn't it? And then with the upvote downvote system, doesn't it just make more sense that people can choose if this is relevant or not?
It's so silly because like I've been warned about self-promotion in the past as well. So now I just don't post on our StarCraft.
But that's so weird because like, why can't you post on our StarCraft? What you're doing is directly related to StarCraft, and why would it essentially what they almost want is for someone else to discover you. Yeah. And then post about it, which is just fucking weird.
Well, it's just random, right? Like, how many people have come in my chat and they're like, man, why didn't you post this on Reddit? I would have found out about it soon. I was like, well, I'm not allowed. And it's just like,
but it's like, that doesn't make any sense though.
No.
I mean, maybe I'm not getting the argument. And here's the thing. I don't really post on forums, by the way, guys. Just recently we had Tasteless podcast where I thought, okay, we have to have something that goes on there. But I don't even have like a secret Reddit account that I go on and like defend myself or some shit. But I just don't understand the rules. I understand the intentions behind them.
I feel like they're good rules for like the overall like Reddit as a website, right? Like,
right.
I feel like certain subreddits, maybe they're much bigger. They're not like necessarily like the thing is, it's just when you look at the StarCraft subreddit, it makes no sense that you can't post your podcast, right? Because you are a massive figure in our StarCraft or in StarCraft. So why can't you tell people what you're doing? Because you are like a face of StarCraft.
Which is, it's a weird thing, or the same thing for you. Like you're doing something that's very, it's literally like directly related to
figures, right? So,
yeah, but it's like, or even the thing with this is a low effort or low quality meme. That's my favorite thing is dumb StarCraft memes.
I actually think since StarCraft went free to play, one of the best things about it was like on our StarCraft was like there was a lot more kind of fun posts rather than every single post just being like, this tournament's happening or that's going on. Like people started making like really fun content that made you laugh, and it was like it's good content for that sort of like for a forum, right? Where it's like a quick picture or something that people can laugh at and like it gets upvoted, and that's really good for the community because then if other people see that on overall Reddit, they come to the community more, right? And it's easy for them to digest and so on. So yeah, it's a bit of a mess.
Yeah, I found this interesting because StarCraft 2 is not the biggest game. Or StarCraft in general, it's not the biggest. It's not the newest game. We're very old. I mean, people that play StarCraft should be nothing but proud of how big the game is for how old it is. It's an unheard of thing. But the idea that we need to somehow police Reddit in that way, it just seems like that would drive content makers away.
It just doesn't feel like our community needs that at all.
Well, also, like, these memes that it might be low effort. What is that even? I mean, if it's funny, it's funny. That's what the whole upvote downvote system is supposed to be. It's supposed to be democratic,
yeah, especially.
Yeah. So I just found that I was curious to pick your brain on that because I just feel like that there clearly doesn't seem to be something that makes sense. Like, let's say that never mind you and me, someone wants to do something, and StarCraft related. What are they supposed to just put it into the black hole of YouTube? And wait for someone to find it like it's a rock in a desert, and then they get to show everybody. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. At this point in time, with this state of a game, and gaming's very new, but StarCraft is about as old as you can get with active games between StarCraft 1 and 2.
Yeah.
The subreddit should only be a ground for breeding more StarCraft content. And sharing more StarCraft content. It should not be anything, I think, otherwise.
Yeah, it's really weird.
Yeah, I guess we're on the same page as this. I thought it was worth talking about because it's hard to put stuff out there.
It's just so weird. Like, I feel like one of the things that happens is like, for example, Base Trade TV, they post something and like, oh, I'm gonna delete this when it's done. Almost as though it's like you're afraid to promote the content. You're trying to convince people it's okay to upvote this because it'll be gone when it's over. And it's like.
Well, I just don't understand. Like, yeah, that's a great example. What's wrong with them just saying this is happening?
Yeah.
Now.
And if people see it later, they can go check it out because there's VODs and things, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have to assume that there's people that might stumble upon this post and say, "Oh, I forgot.
Yeah.
They base trade did this thing. Let me go check that out, or let me mark that on my weekend. I'll go watch that." And it just doesn't seem to be. It just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense.
No. I could understand it for say Fortnite just became big, right?
Yeah.
And say you have 20 people an hour trying to post their new video of how they build in Fortnite or something. Something suddenly that maybe becomes a problem. But I feel like for the StarCraft specifically, you don't have loads of new content creators trying to use it as a stepping stone to get big quick.
Yeah, because we were touching upon this earlier on, but there's a lot of weird money grab stuff going on in esports because the projected numbers as this continues to grow, it's going to just be ridiculously big. So I actually could appreciate a brand new game. Yeah. A subreddit, a group coming in and trying to take over and take advantage of it. But at the same time, when you have StarCraft 2, which is, 8 years old now?
Yeah.
If you make a show, let's take another game, Final Fantasy Tactics, okay? Old game, classic game. Let's say that you want to make some kind of content around Final Fantasy Tactics. You would post it on the Final Fantasy Tactics
of course
subreddit because the odds of
that's the audience.
That's the audience, right? Whereas with the StarCraft, I just don't understand how this would encourage any content creators to do.
No, I really don't think it does.
Or if you play by the rules, then it's this weird fake thing. I have to go ask one of my friends to post it for me.
Which is against the rules. But
I mean, that's what I would have to do, right? Or
just really hope that someone's hey, you know what would be good if I posted this to Reddit?
Yeah, rely on the inconsistency.
But then, they just, shouldn't they assume that you're posting it to Reddit as well? That's what a lot of people I talk to, when I say this in my chat, I'm like, oh, I don't post things on Reddit because I'm not meant to self-promote. And then they're like, well, I wouldn't post it on Reddit because I just assume that's your job. I'm a fan. It's not my job to go and tell other people necessarily, on a rigid structure. And, all of a sudden, if, say, the same person posts my stream every day, when does it become self-promotion because it's the same person posting my stream every day, right? It's so vague, the rules, and
it just seems a little bit weird. I don't know if I have an exact answer, but I just found that.
Yeah, I don't know what the solution is necessarily either. It just feels like sometimes the rules are enforced more than they need to be.
Well, it's rules that are just not necessarily pragmatic. They're not serving. It's a rule that's detrimental. Yeah. I get the idea there, but then if we're we're all going to handcuff ourselves to this way of doing it, then now we have another problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. How's this podcast going so far? By the way,
it's fun.
It's fun.
Yeah.
This is your first time doing something like this?
I did my own podcast for a little while.
Oh, did you? I didn't know that.
It wasn't very big or anything. It was more I did for fun. So it started out as a talk show. I decided asking 3 people every week to come on was a bit too much effort. So I knocked it down to a one-on-one thing.
Was it done online?
Yeah. It's way better doing it in person, I actually think.
Yeah, this is what we're trying to go for with this right now is kind of it's easier to go face-to-face in conversations. Also, I haven't done online casting really. I started out doing live stuff, so I have a very hard time doing just shows online in general. I can't track onto it, and I feel it's kind of more fun to sit here and hang out and kind of do this.
It can feel so much more personal rather than what I felt as well was every week I got someone on and there was a couple different topics, but then a lot of it becomes the overarching thing of oh, well, how are you doing, right? Because it's just someone else you're talking to online, and that's kind of what you do, and it just felt way too easy to just become so structured and again, because you're not there with each other, it's you don't know what they're looking, what they're saying, or you don't have that facial expression sort of addition, right? To kind of have that back and forth almost.
Yeah, it's been fun to do this. I'm really enjoying this. We were talking about you going to events and doing all this live stuff, and I think one of the most interesting parts of your story as a caster is when you went to Turkmenistan.
Yeah, it was really crazy.
So, I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
You get invited to do an event. For me, that's pretty exciting because I don't do events every weekend, right? I get a few a year or something. So you get invited to an event that you've not really heard of before. It's like, oh, it's the Asian indoor martial arts game. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
but they're like, it's actually like associated with the Olympics, and you're like, oh, cool, that sounds really sick, right?
Yeah.
And then like, it's in Turkmenistan, and you're like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, this is the funny thing too. Is like, I'm sure it's the same for you in school, but like, in our education system, there are blind spots in geography that they're just not
I had no
touching
idea.
upon. I mean, that's in my head, I always call it like the Stan region. There's what is it?
Yeah,
Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan.
Yeah.
Is there Tajikistan? Yeah, there's Melty's pulling this up.
It's just
We're gonna-
next to the other ones that end with Stan, right? And it's like,
Yeah, somehow, what's the deal with that? All those countries got together like we're the Stans, you know? Melty says it has something to do with Soviet Union. Yeah, you're probably right.
that's such a smart answer.
Kazakhstan,
Yeah.
Uzbek. You know, there's a lot of Uzbeki people in Korea.
Oh, really?
There's a lot of Uzbekistan people
Yeah.
out here. In fact, I believe if they fix if the North Korea South Korea thing ever gets settled down, there's going to be a train that goes from Uzbekistan to South Korea.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're going to try to get the trains all connected out there. So you were in Turkmenistan, which is, for the people listening, wait, Melty. Oh, right there. I'm sorry. It's just north of Iran
Yeah.
and Afghanistan,
Mhm.
and Uzbekistan is just above it.
Yeah.
And Turkmenistan is actually one of the most isolated countries in the world, an authoritarian government, no free press,
They give out 5,000 visas a year.
5,000 visas a year.
Yeah. For everything.
It's also oil rich,
Yeah. So they're extremely
just to make it
rich.
clear. So
Yeah.
it's not a situation where, like, speaking of which, I went to Azerbaijan like for an event. Beautiful city.
Yeah.
Baku's an amazing place. I had know nothing about Azerbaijan at all, and I was really impressed. What was Turkmenistan like for you?
Super weird. Because like it went from this place that I'd never heard anything about
Yeah,
to I Googled it and was like, I shouldn't go there.
it's like second worst in human rights, right? It's North
Yeah,
Korea's number one,
North
and then
Korea- and then it's Turkmenistan second.
Yeah.
Like I think a couple of the casters for other games turned it down because they were from America, and their American traveling suggestions was like, do not go there at any cost.
yeah,
Like, and like the British one was like, well, if you get a visa to go there, I guess it's okay for you to go there because who gets a visa to go to Turkmenistan? So
Yeah.
it's it was really weird because
and but just to be clear, you casted StarCraft 2 down there.
yes, so it was like I said, it's part of the Asian Indoor Martial Arts Games, which is like an Olympic certified event, which
Right.
is one of the reasons I went, because it was like we're there on behalf of the Olympic Games or the Olympic Committee or however you call it.
Right.
So that made it like a bit of a, easier sleeping at night, right? But it was very weird. I mean, from the moment we landed, this grand majestic airport. Our plane there was full on like Turkmenistan Airlines. Turns out they were all just going for a layover. We were the only 3 people out of a full plane to get off at Turkmenistan,
Oh my God.
right?
Oh, that's so
So-
crazy.
So we arrive in this and this airport's decorated like it's made of marble. It's got gold like decorations around it. Like it is absolutely magnificent. It's huge. There's like 20 like carousels of bags, and obviously like me, Rapid, and one of the Hearthstone casters, I think. Oh, I can't remember who I traveled with, but like there's like 3 of us on the plane. Like our 3 bags were obviously the only ones there because they're the only ones that got off the plane. So it's like this massive place. Like I can't even like describe how magnificent it was. And we were like the only people there. We get escorted right away to like the car to get in, and like we're driving through the city. It's really beautiful. Like everywhere's lit up nice. We get taken to like the top of the hill that like overlooks the city, to like this massive hotel, and it was like wow, this place is really stunning and everything. But then even like when we check into the hotel, like you realize something's off because they took our passports off us. And it's like
Really?
yeah, so it's like you don't leave unless we let you leave.
Oh,
And that
that's
was
so
like
crazy.
and
That's
that was
so
yeah, right. And so that would be terrifying if we like again like because we were there on behalf of like the Olympic Committee or whatever. It's like a bit more like okay, well I can handle this, but that's not something like I would have been okay with otherwise, right? Like
Yeah.
and it was a bit weird because when we got to the hotel, like obviously it was the hotel where they put like all the like commentators of like other of like the sports in for the event.
Yeah.
So like it was actually full of people like foreigners who'd been there for like weeks and weeks, and so they were quite happy like getting drunk within like the vicinity of the hotel. But it was
Is that almost like you're in like a city inside of a city kind of thing?
It really
like
was, because like we got out and some like Spanish guys like, hey guys, how you doing? Welcome. And it's like, but that was like such a different experience from anything else while we were there, right? And it's like, I wouldn't have dared like had a drink and like walk down the street.
I think Rapid told me because he takes a lot of photos on his phone.
Yeah.
He like, took a photo of some building that turned out to be a government building.
Yeah.
And they took his phone away from him.
Yeah.
And then it was like an hour or something. And then they gave the phone back and the picture was gone.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It's like, whoa.
I know.
Like, that's crazy. But, the thing is, that's a part of the world.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at Melty, can put the population of Turkmenistan? There's actually a lot of people living there. I mean, but yeah, I've never met anybody from there. I don't believe there's a lot of free travel. And it's just a country that just isn't talked about, I think, because, North Korea gets so much attention and, the nuclear weapons, and there's a war in Afghanistan adjacent to that, and there's been problems in Pakistan. But this is a Turkmenistan, only 5.7 million people.
But it's also like a lot of desert. So it's like,
oh my God, it's actually way less than I thought.
But like, I think like the cities are very populated.
Look at Tajikistan's killing it with almost 9 million. They're crushing.
But so what's crazy though is we went to the capital city, right? And we didn't see a single like pedestrian. Like,
yeah.
We saw no one because they got told like while these games won, you don't go out in the streets, you don't drive your cars, you only get the bus to the games to make a crowd, and that's what you do. And that's like,
oh my God.
And it's like these are like the experiences we had there that you don't really think about until you get back. But like, for example, like the people in the crowd for the esports, they were sat there. There was literally like, this is like beyond like, this is like meme level of like discussion, but like actually happened. There's like someone that job was to hold up the sign to clap.
Oh my God.
Right. And the crowd claps. And we talk to them and they're like, yeah, if I don't clap, they don't let me finish my degree here.
Oh my God.
Right. It's like really messed up, and you like.
I really wish I could have gone to this tournament and seen this. I'm so curious.
It's crazy, right? Like,
yeah.
So it's almost like I don't even know if I saw Turkmenistan, because I feel like it wasn't really Turkmenistan. It was like, this is Turkmenistan for these games,
dude.
And they like they're rich as well. Like they built like an Olympic park for these games. This is the crazy thing as well. Like it's a real Olympic park. Like it's massive. They've got like a massive stadium. It's got to have like the Olympic torch in as well. And like I think like one of the things of Turkmenistan is like a horse. So like the Olympic torch was held in like a horse's head, and I'm talking like it's like a massive stadium, and like the top like part of the oval is like a massive horse with like the flame in its head, and no one's in it. Like this entire Olympic city, it would take you like
weird.
4 hours to walk around.
Yeah,
no one's there because no one's there. Like you get told to go to this event and clap, and that's it.
The closest I've been to that region, like I was saying earlier, was Azerbaijan. But Azerbaijan's a functional country.
Yeah.
I was doing a little bit of reading before I went there. I think there's some, a little bit less democratic there.
Yeah.
But I got there and it's again an oil-rich country.
Yeah.
And it's one of these places, if you're an American or Brit, you just don't. It's not on the radar, and so it was such a nice city. It was so well. I just thought, holy shit, why is this not in the? Yeah. Why is everybody not talking about Baku? This is such a beautiful place. But it's just one of these places where you don't know. I think Azerbaijan's the only place where Sunnis and Shias can worship in the same place, and there's not a lot of not as much violence there with that. So you're in this city that is like, it's got all this magnificent architecture and all this infrastructure, and no one's there.
Yeah, it's absolutely empty. Like we're talking about like 4-lane highways, and I actually didn't see another car apart from the shuttle bus we were on driving. Like we saw like car parks that had full of cars.
Yeah,
there was not a single car on the road, because obviously like
really?
for the games they were just like, yeah, you don't drive. That's all we can assume anyways, because why else would no one be driving when we saw cars just not on the road? That's
so interesting.
It's honestly, you could talk about it for hours, because just trying to convince people how crazy it was, because it really was like such a weird experience.
Actually, I don't know if you knew this, but I almost went to North Korea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine. We were going to go. He'd actually been there once before. And it's like a guided tour. Yeah. It's not. And I wanted to go on the weird guided tour.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm not going to do anything stupid. I'm not going to steal a poster, or I don't know. I just wanted to see that. I want to see, okay, what is, I've been living in South Korea for 11 years. I am adjacent to this country that is the most controversial country in the world. And we had it booked. It's this crazy thing where you got to go into China. Then from China, you fly into North Korea, and then you have a minder with you. And I thought this is going to just be so cool. I'm going to have this totally weird experience.
Yeah.
But the trip was booked around basically not even around, the same time that Trump would move into office. And I just thought, I don't know.
If it's safe.
Yeah, I don't know what he might tweet. Nobody knew what he was going to be like before he got in office. And I thought,
yeah,
he might say the wrong thing. I mean, he did, now we know he did call him like Little Rocket Man, Kim Jong-un. I didn't know what he might say. And I thought, okay, well, this might be just a little bit too dicey. Yeah. So I canceled. But actually, the friend I was going to go, we're going to meet after for drinks here. But yeah, it was September 1. Melty's pulling this up on screen for us. So September 1 of 2017, the United States Department of State has prohibited the use of U.S. passports for this validation for travel to North Korea. Yeah, that's right. And that was since that guy died. The Otto, I can't remember his full name. An American died. Did you know about that? This guy stole a poster, a propaganda poster.
Think so.
And then I don't know, it was totally weird. He's like, there's videos of him like crying and saying he messed up and he needs to be let go. And then he died of botulism, which is just like a weird thing people don't die from anymore. But I don't know what the conditions are like over there. Otto, how do I read that name, Melty?
Warm beer?
Warm beer?
Warm buyer?
Warm buyer? Warm buyer, I think. Sorry, Otto. Don't know how to say his name correctly. But that's so cool that you had that experience going to Turkmenistan. I think that it's a weird thing in esports that I think is not... People that follow esports don't tend to realize this, that people in esports travel.
Yeah.
They're going to all sorts of crazy places and seeing the world. Even though you think of gaming as kind of a homebody, antisocial thing, working in esports is quite the opposite. Yeah,
you get to go all over the place. I've gotten to travel everywhere, but like Turkmenistan's like one of those places where I will never go there again. I'm 99.9% sure, unless for some reason like some other tournament happens there. But it's not somewhere I'm ever going to get a visa for, right? So it's like I'll never go there again. I probably never would have even knew it would exist if it wasn't for esports. And I got such a unique experience of it too, because I think, again, if you usually go there, you have to have a guide. But because we were there on behalf of the Olympic Committee, it was like, you don't need a guide because they locked all the citizens away. So yeah, it was a really cool experience, and I've gone to travel everywhere with esports now. Basically, like I would find it difficult to think of somewhere I haven't been for esports. I mean, there's a few places in Europe, and I mean, there's places, right? But in terms of like general areas of the world, like I've been to America, I've been to South America, Asia. Obviously, I live in Europe. I've been to stretches of Europe I wouldn't maybe usually go to. Even like parts of like countries that, like for example, Germany, right? Home Story Cups in Krefeld. I would never go to Krefeld.
Yeah.
If like it wasn't for that. Leipzig is another city in Germany that we have WCS at some years. I would never have gone there if it wasn't for esports as well. So it's a real eye-opener in terms of traveling.
Yeah, that's something I've always been blown away by. Let's take an ESL event you go work for. ESL, it's people from all over the world.
Yeah.
That are down there. I mean, I've worked in production companies where it's like you have a person from every continent.
Yeah.
Everybody's using English, but it's all the kind of different types of broken English. It's like the best of the best.
Yeah.
All coming together.
And that's so cool as well, though, right?
Yeah.
Like, I've been to so many places now as well where it's just like, you know what, I'm going to stay a few extra days with my friend who I met for esports.
Right.
So, like, I did that in San Francisco. I was just like...
It's an amazing city.
Yeah, after BlizzCon one time I flew up to San Francisco and stayed with Fear Dragon for a few days. And it's like, that's crazy because that saves me, like, the cost of a hotel for a week. And that means I can travel more than I would ever usually be able to because, it's just opportunities I would never have because why would I know people there? So it's like coming out to Korea. Obviously, like South Korea is very, based around esports, right? But even coming out here, I come out here because I know people here. So I travel out here on my own. Whereas if it wasn't for that, I feel like I would have had to find someone I know to travel here with just to, feel comfortable while I was here. So I think that's crazy because it really made me want to travel everywhere. And I feel like I can travel anywhere now as well because I almost feel like I know people everywhere. It is really, really crazy in that regard.
Yeah, it's funny. I had the similar experience where I was in Romania doing an event. It was one of my favorite events I did. I was doing like hosting instead of casting, which I did for a little bit. I didn't like it as much. I want to cast more, but I asked some of the guys that were in the event. I said, I'm going to be here for an extra day. Can you recommend me what to do? They said, oh, we'll have some of our buddies take you out.
Yeah.
These guys brought me out for a great night. They were all wonderful people, and I got to experience Bucharest, and it was just incredible. I thought I would never be in Romania.
Yeah.
Or many of the other countries I've been to, but I thought it just wasn't on a list of places I would think to go, and I loved it. And I loved the food, and the people were great, and I thought, how cool is this?
Yeah, it pushes you out of your comfort zone, right?
Yeah.
I think even if you're like an explorative person, Romania really isn't somewhere you Romania, unless you literally throw a dart at the map. And
Right, yeah.
It's just so out there.
And it's wonderful. And I loved it. And I've had this with so many places that I've gone to where I think it just wouldn't have occurred to me. And not only that, but just to see a stadium fill up. It was for a DreamHack. It was when I was there, but we're broadcasting in English. The audience is loving it. Everybody's having so much fun. I'm like, this is so cool.
Yeah, that's really sick.
And to see all these people kind of come together. If you could go to another country that I guess would be feasible in esports. So you can't say Antarctica. I can't say North Korea where I cast the tournament that Kim Jong-un wins every time. I've got guys with fucking AK-47s pointed at my face. I got to talk about.
Maybe Australia.
Australia.
Yeah.
I've been to Australia. I cast there. It is the fans are so cool in Australia.
You can tell every time there's an event there, in other esports and stuff. Because I guess we haven't had a massive StarCraft event in Australia for quite a long time.
Yeah.
But when you watch the other games in Australia, the crowd there goes crazy. But that's one of those places where it's I'd want to go, but then having a reason to go helps. Melty just pulled up the time it takes to fly there. It takes 23 hours.
Oh, no. Australia is a moon base, man.
And that's a one-stop flight.
Yeah.
So if you imagine you got a layover, you're talking a 30-hour travel.
23 hours and 10 minutes to fly from London to Australia.
Jeez. A one-stop, yeah. It's ridiculous. In my eyes, I would never want to do that. But then if I'm going there to work, it's completely different. And it gives me a reason. And I'd absolutely if I got a chance to go there, I would. And I would totally stay an extra week afterwards to explore and stuff. There's
it's kind of a known secret with people that work in esports, but the two best audiences in esports are Australians and Polish audiences.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the worst audiences have been German. Germans just don't tend to I'm not beating up on Germany, but they just tend to not be as animated. In esports matches. I don't know what it is. It was pointed out to me by somebody top tier in the industry. And after I started going between Poland and Germany doing events, I said, oh, my God, you're right. For some reason, the Germans seem to consume the event almost in a movie theater type of way. Yeah. They're quiet. They're focused. Different
cultures, isn't it?
Yeah. And for some reason, the Poles tend to be more it's a sporting match. And Australians are just awesome and kind of jovial.
They're just crazy in the first place.
Right? Yeah. American audiences actually can be quite good as well. I'm not just saying that, plugging my own country here, but it's kind of interesting to see which audiences react.
Yeah, definitely.
And Korea, that's where the whole culture of coming in with a sign, which now is basically ubiquitous in esports, is a sign being there. But that was a cool thing in Korean culture. So you say Australia? I'd say I want to go to Dubai. I keep not getting to go to Dubai. Yeah. And I have not been to the Middle East yet. And I would love to do it. Or Israel as well. I think that would be a cool place to go.
I got to go to Dubai once. Not for esports, though.
What's Dubai like?
It's really hot.
I've heard it feels like Las Vegas in the sense that everything is...
Yeah, it's everything's in the middle of a desert.
It's in the middle of a desert. Everything's kind of...
magnificent.
Magnificent and new and over the... Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, it really is. I got to go because my dad worked on ships. So he had he had a conference then. So I think it was just my mum goes to Dubai a lot for holidays, for example. So for one time, my dad was like, oh, well, we've got a hotel. You may as well come out. So we did. It really was just everything's super pretty. Everything's really well built up. But it's so weird because you can go down to the street market and you can buy anything for $1. And
really?
It's for example, you can buy you can buy food for the evening for $1, and you can eat like a king. Like you can eat so much. You can buy like a bag of like pastries. It's like $1, and it's like overflowing. Like they can't give you enough. And then like
why?
You can get,
Why is that the case?
I have no idea. But it's so but it's so weird. Like because then you can like one of my mom's favorite thing to do is like to go down by the river, and to like buy like a bag of pastries or something for dinner. And then like get on a little boat that goes across, and it's like, health and safety doesn't exist on it, but like you pay like probably like 10 cents to get on this boat to go across the river, and like they row you across, and it's like just a really cool way to spend like literally $5 and like spend an entire evening. So it's like
fascinating,
super extremes.
I actually, another place I love to go to in Caston is, first of all, I've never been to Latin America. I really want to go there. I've been unlucky. No one's booked me there. I'd love to cast in Africa. I have a buddy of mine who's South African, and he actually invited me to go to Cape Town and stay with him and his family, but I just couldn't. I didn't. I had too much work to do. But I would love to check it out. But I actually, this is going to sound really weird, but you were talking about how you hadn't been to Australia yet, and part of it was like, well, you should probably have a reason to go. Yeah. Because there's a chance there could be an esports event there, and why go to visit Australia and then you might end up working there 2 years later. I had this with Japan. Yeah. When I've been in Korea for 11 years, I didn't go to Japan because I just thought, well, obviously there's going to be an esports event that's going to hire me to go to Japan. And so I just kept waiting. And I would get flown to work in China, and then I get flown to work in Taiwan. I get flown to work in Hong Kong. And then in the meanwhile, I visited Vietnam and Cambodia and Thailand and Indonesia. I've been all over Asia. I just never ended up in Japan because I just thought, okay, well, it's such a short flight, and I'm going to be there for it, and it hasn't happened yet. And I just went for my first time last year for Christmas, and finally checked it out. It was like the last Asian country. It's great. I love Japan. I prefer Korea. Japan is. People don't realize, I think, if they haven't been to both countries, that they assume that Korea and Japan are. When I talk to like Americans, for instance, they assume they're like the same country or like pretty similar. Sure. It's just in like how they feel, kind of like an America-Canada thing. Yeah. They're very similar to each other, but after living in Korea for a long time, Japan is very different in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. Even if the two countries are so similar to each other compared to everything else, it just operates in a different way. Japan's awesome. Yeah. I love Japan. I think a little bit more insular than Korea. Yeah. But it's got its own thing, and it's safe and it's beautiful, and they're trying to get esports going out there, but there's been some kind of weird complications where I believe, I don't know if the laws have changed recently, but esports was viewed as the same thing as gambling. Right. Winning money playing games, and there's all these weird laws with that, and where Korea was much more loose about that. But yeah, hopefully someday I'll cast something in Japan. That'd be fun.
Yeah, it'd be a cool place to visit.
Yeah. So what are you going to do with the rest of your time here in Seoul?
So I'm here for another 3 or 4 days. So I'm doing Gsl Qualifiers again tomorrow, just to see people and hang out and that kind of stuff. And then Gsl Finals the day after. So obviously kind of one of the big reasons I came was for GSL. So I kind of feel like I've done a lot of my sightseeing and that kind of stuff. So I'm kind of finally at the StarCraft part. So a lot of StarCraft in the next couple of days, and then maybe just a couple of other little areas that I want to check out. No in particular. I'm just going to see where the days take me.
Sick. Well, this was a lot of fun doing this podcast. Thank you so much, Wardi. And I guess that does it. That's a wrap. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Tasteless Podcast, guys. It's really appreciated. I know we're starting small, but I have no intentions of stopping and doing anything else with my life.
Yeah, we're just gonna be full-time
podcast. This is it. Yeah. I don't know why that came out so weird, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. As usual, we'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. Guest has not been announced yet. If you can, please support us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Tasteless Podcast. This episode was produced by Melty, artwork by Alarise, music by Mark Lentz.
I'm one of those people.
You're one of those people, yeah. Bye-bye. I'll see you guys in 2 weeks.